Good day. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful Saturday, a special stream that I'm doing today. Good to see all of you here. Yeah, things are going a little bit, slower than I would like to, but it's so good to see all of you here today. Nice to have you. Just to let you guys know, the Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead and subscribe to me there. Also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can see me there on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays as well. Now, if you guys have not, then you guys can go ahead and subscribe also to the Substack, so you guys are notified whenever I do go live or upload clips or write new articles. You guys can go to jbfaunt.substack.com. And just want to say hello to everybody who is watching. Also, make sure to give the stream a quick like if you would like to as well. Thank you so very much for that. And as well, just to say hello to everybody that's joining in the chat so far. Now, just to let you guys know, if you guys have not already, I have a guest that I forgot to put in the title, and my apologies to my guest, but I would like to say my hello and salutations to Midwestern Marx's own Noah Khrachvik. Did I? Oh, I said it wrong, didn't I?
No, you got it. You got it, brother.
Oh, really?
And don't even worry about. It's funny. I just came from doing Nick's show. He didn't put me in the title either. I'm used to it. It's great to be here. And I had no idea you wrote too. That's exciting.
Yeah, I did a couple of articles on Substack. I'm trying to write more, trying to get out of my comfort zone. I'm more of a talker than a writer, but I think that if I push myself in this direction, then I can learn a little bit more, and it deepens my research muscles. It deepens my ability to extend my vocabulary. That's one of the things I'm trying to do. Not trying to necessarily sound smarter, but to try to put the ideas that I want in a more put it out there in a more thorough way, so that it's less convoluted. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. I'm more of a writer than a talker, actually. And how have I not had a chance to edit you yet?
Mm-hmm.
Submit something to the Institute, brother. I'd love to work with you on it.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so very much. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to do. It's kind of difficult because growing up, I did not like. I'm good at reading. I don't like reading. I didn't like reading, and as far as writing's concerned, I'm not really good at as far as the grammar. Not really good, but I'm working on it. So just making sure that I do better on that. But yeah.
I've believe it or not, I wrote fiction for a while. I actually had a novel that Random House bought. It never ended up getting published, but they bought it, which was cool. But in preparing to do that, I read a ton of books on how to write. And one of the main things that you get told is readability is king over grammar, over anything. As long as it reads the way you speak, you're fine. I have terrible grammar, and I actually adjust the way I speak when I'm doing these. You should hear me talk like on the phone with Carlos or Eddie. Forget about it. It's nothing like this, right?
Wow.
But if what you're writing sounds natural, if read out loud, you're in good shape. Don't worry about the grammar so much.
Gotcha. One of my articles that I had wrote is called "It's a Time to Move Beyond Bernie Sanders." So I did that one, and so that was one of my first soirees into really getting into it. And then another one I did was really just talking about why Black people should really care about what's going on in Ukraine, especially in regards to uh, how Black people are treated in this country. And so I talked about that. Um, this is the latest one that was written in mid-September. Actually, let me share my screen really quick so you can see.
Absolutely. Sorry,
So
I got a little visitor here who needed attention.
it's all good. Cats are cool with me. Let me see. All right, so is why Black people should pay attention to the proxy war in Ukraine. The blurb says there's a sympathetic undercurrent for Nazis and fascism that should give Black people pause in Western nation. The time to wake up is now. And so Tarp says Black people should be paying keen attention to what's happening in the developments in the proxy war and the U.S. is waging against Russia by means of Ukraine right now. As many of us in independent media have been saying, this war of attrition that the U.S. is funding for the sole purpose of gaining access to Russian resources is revealing how nefarious the corporate government is and shows us how dire of a need we have to change the system from the ground up. Make no mistake, the U.S. government is funding Nazis, and they know it.
That's a great line. That's a fantastic line.
Yeah. So that's basically what I wrote, and it was just something that was deeply on my mind because a lot of times within the Black community, a lot of times we don't pay as much attention to foreign policy as I think we should, because a lot of Black people, especially within the last week or so, and it's to my heartbreak, a lot of Black people are saying, well, what's going on in Israel and Palestine? It's none of our business. As if we don't have a stake in this at all. And what's going on right now in the proxy war in Ukraine, that is our business as Black people. We should take care to see what's going on and see how it affects us. The genocide in Palestine, what's going on, it should also be taken notice by us, and we should care deeply about it because it does affect us and we are stakeholders in this. What's going on in Congo right now really should also be taken notice by us. Just like a lot of our parents and a lot of Gen Xers back in the day, back in the late 80s, early 90s, they cared a lot about what's going on in apartheid South Africa. We should be caring about this. And what's going on in Sudan and in Haiti. We should also be paying keen attention. But a lot of Black people only care about American Black people. And that's it. And they're like, well, that's my people. And I'm like, no. Here's the thing. You just so happen to have been born in this country. But chances are, if things have been different, even slightly, a different ancestor had been chosen, you would have been born in any one of these other countries too. So therefore, it is up to you to have solidarity with your fellow workers around the world, because guess what? Like I always say, if they don't do it, if they're going to do it to them, they're going to do it to you. And that's how I feel.
And, it's not even just like a moral thing, like what they're doing to the Palestinian people should disgust us, like on a physical, like it should make your stomach turn type of thing. But the material interests of all working class people align, especially in something like this. And my coworkers, most of whom are white, I live in Cleveland, so it's mostly Black, and there's it's generally an integrated thing everywhere. But in carpentry, it's mostly white people, right? And they've said the same type of thing. Like, why should we care about what's happening to the Palestinians? They ain't got nothing to do with us. I don't know any Palestinians. And the first thing I tell them is that, look around. Look at our city. Look at our country. It's crumbling, right? People are destitute, struggling paycheck to paycheck. Our roads are falling apart. We got no production here whatsoever. No
Mhm.
economy. Everything is owned by these giant banks, etc. And it's our government funding this, right? They're taking money from you and me to fund a genocide.
Yeah.
Second, who do you think these Palestinians are fighting against? They're fighting against your enemy, buddy. They're fighting against those people stealing everything from you and impoverishing your family. The enemy of my, or the friend of my, or what is it? Enemy of my enemy is my friend, right?
Hmm.
So, of course, you should care, because what is good for them is good for you. And so when I talk about this, there's so many levels to it, but I begin there, and I begin with material interests. Because why is the genocide even happening? Right? It's not because Israel becomes evil out of nowhere and just gets these evil ideas. It's their material interests that create these evil ideas, right?
Yeah.
It's the need for capital to expand into these settlements that creates the settler colony in the first place. Same thing
Absolutely.
that happened to Native Americans here.
Hmm. Yeah. And in fact, I appreciate you going into this. And so, one of the things that I wanted to bring attention to is that, and you've been open about this, you are of Jewish descent, right? Can you give us, from not just a Jewish perspective, but also a Marxist perspective, of what's going on in Palestine in your view, and why it is so important for us to not only pay keen attention to this, but also express our solidarity with the people who are being oppressed within the region?
Yeah. Eh, for Jewish people, it's worse, and I think more important to stand with Palestinian liberation, to show people that what they say they're doing in our name, they don't speak for us,
Mm,
right? They don't represent all Jews. They represent Zionism. They
mm,
represent imperialism. They how from the beginning of Zionism, it split Jews down the middle. There's a religious question here,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of Jewish groups who talk about um, in Talmudic law, uh, the creation of the promised land or a homeland for the Jewish people is the work of the Messiah because of the breaking of the covenant, right? And
Gotcha.
basically, Jewish people wander and wander and wander. And so, from a religious level, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a religious guy. We joke in my family that we're Jew-ish, right? Because it's none of us are religious, and it's actually my dad's parents who were Jews, right? And so, when you're Jewish, it actually is supposed to come down through your mother. So if your mother's not Jewish, you're not Jewish according to that same religion. Anyway, um, but so the creation of the promised land of Israel is literally human beings taking it upon themselves to do the work of the Messiah. And what these groups say, and there's a lot of Orthodox groups that say this, is that this strips them of their Judaism altogether. So for them at that time to act as if they speak for all Jews is utterly absurd, right? They had this question come up within the Soviet Union. There was a thriving what they called the boon, the Jewish boon, right? And the question of whether an autonomous region for Jews arose, and they began building it twice because it just split people down the middle. So from the beginning, Zionism was always controversial, and never have all Jews supported it. Never, never, ever. So for them to do something this heinous and say they're doing it in the name of all Jews, and that when people protest it, they're somehow protesting against Jews, is just a lie. It's nothing but a lie at that point.
So the saying that being anti-Zionist is equivalent to being anti-Jewish, or anti-Semitic, as they will say it, that doesn't carry any water, really, does it?
No, none whatsoever. We actually, when I was just talking to Nick, we watched a really good video from Novara Media where a woman explained that basically what I just explained, that this has always been a hot topic of debate among Jewish people. That so to say what you know, like who is it that was saying that I don't know, all the conservative pundits have been saying that lately, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people who apparently were anti-war last week are no longer anti-war because of this, but they've been saying that. Oh, I'm sorry, my head just blanked, JB. I apologize. I don't know where I was going.
No. We were just
on this
talking.
topic, if you couldn't tell.
No. We were just discussing about how as far as people equating Judaism and Zionism, or Semitism or Semitics with Zionism. From what some Orthodox and Hasidic Jews have been saying, that I've been seeing, especially throughout Twitter, which has been very helpful, is that a lot of them have said that Zionism in itself is anti-Semitic. Because if you're trying to create a Jewish state, which by Jewish religion, they're not supposed to have a state, you're literally going against the Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of it all, you're literally putting Jewish people in a position of an oppressor, which also puts Jewish people's lives in danger. Because now you have an oppressed people that have to fight back against some Jewish people in order to get their liberation. So they literally put Jewish lives at risk by making them settlers. So in a sense, if you really want to talk about it, would I be wrong in saying the state of Israel is actually anti-Semitic?
I mean, from that perspective of that makes perfect sense. Not to mention the whole thing is kind of a timeshare scheme, right? Like, I'm not Jewish enough for that.
I never heard like that.
But when anyone whose mother, by the way, is Jewish, they get what they call birthright, right?
Yeah,
where they invite you to come see the homeland, come see Israel, right? And they like take you around to basically what amounts to timeshares and try to get you to move there. And by the way, when you turn 18 there, you sign up for the military. There's no other way to go about it. So they're conscripting you into fighting and risking your life as well. But yeah, the birthright thing, and especially calling it that, strikes me as ideologically way too similar to the Nazis, from people who should know better, right? That just says blood and soil to me, that we have a certain kind of blood and it gives us a right to this land. I don't care who's on it. We'll get rid of them. It's our blood that makes us special, and that's why we're going here, right?
Damn, Noah. That's it's basically, it sounds like it's like some of them have became the very thing that they've hated, and and this is why I'm looking at Black people, and a lot of Black people who are saying, well, it's not our problem, that's way over there. I'm going, so all the people in Europe, the white people in Europe, if they said the same thing about us during slavery, then that's okay. That's cool. That's cool if they say that's their problem. It doesn't affect us, right? And it doesn't sound right.
Remember that famous poem about the Nazis? At first they came for the communists.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, the rhetoric is very Nazi-like as well. The way they talk about Palestinian people as if they're not even people. Have you seen those disgusting TikTok videos that are like all the rage in Israel right now, of these like spoiled middle-class kids doing these horrible racist tropes that just remind me of the way middle-class white people used to treat black people back in the day, before the civil rights movement, with blackface and all that disgusting stuff, you know?
Yeah.
How are the people who had this happen to them, this happened to our people, right? How are they perpetrating the same exact thing, calling them animals and trying to present themselves as the victims, just as the Nazis did, just as they treated Jews, right? Acting as if we were outsiders coming to ruin everything. I'm sorry, I get a little discombobulated because it really eats me up. I apologize for getting kind of triggered on your show.
No. I think it's important that our emotion is tied to this, because people need to see that this, when you're somebody who's on the left like us, Marxists, communists, socialists, whatever, you develop a love for humanity, and seeing other human beings being oppressed the way they are. I don't care if it's in Europe, in South America, different parts of Africa, even in the indigenous Australians, even white Australia, it doesn't matter. When you see people be oppressed, it affects you here. And so I think that's important, because for some people, it's just a means of, morality points. Like, haha, I got better on you on morality. When in reality, for us, it's like, no. We're not trying to win points. We're trying to advocate for lives to be saved.
It's become like way too accepted on the left these days to do that sort of virtue signaling morality.
Yeah.
Right? That whole like, oh, you're evil and I'm so much better than you think, rather than what the left has traditionally done all through history, which is bring all working people together based on that love, right? The reason I got into this wasn't because of Marxism. I began learning Marxism because of that love. Che Guevara, who was a very underrated theorist, once said that the true revolutionary is guided by great feelings of love, that he cannot imagine a genuine revolutionary without that characteristic.
True.
That's all there is to it. If you don't have a love for the people, your people, their people, who's ever, then your heart's not in this at all. What are you doing? You're in it for yourself. And this sort of politics as fashion that has developed over the last maybe 15 years.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to get into more the Marxist overview as to why we're seeing this illegal, and I put emphasis on illegal because an occupation that is happening within Palestine is illegal, especially by international law. Why this is happening. Now, I'm not sure if you caught RBN on Thursday night. Sabi and I actually talked about how the institution of the state of Israel is linked to capitalism, and how the Greater Israel Project is linked to growing Israel outside of the borders of Palestine into Jordan, into Lebanon, into Egypt, and to other Middle Eastern states. And how there is actually there was an article talking about how there is a huge amount of oil off the coast of Palestine that is being looked at, or has already been looked at, and could generate billions of dollars in revenue for that area. And so if you can just, go from 30,000 feet in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll show that while you do what you need to take care of.
Perfect. Thanks, brother. I'll be right back.
Yeah, sure. So while Noah's getting that, let me share this article so that it shows how capitalism is really linked to the creation of Israel. And a lot of people would be like, "Oh my God, JB, what are you saying?" What I'm saying is that they wanted this in order to really just corporatize the Middle East and make money. So let me share this article really quick, and then Noah will come back and he can expound on this a little bit further. So this is an article out of the UN. So UNCTAD. So United Nations Conference on Trade and Development says the unrealized potential of Palestinian oil and gas reserves. It says oil, this is from 2019. It says oil and natural gas resources in the occupied Palestinian territory can generate hundreds of billions of dollars for development. It says geologists and resource economists have confirmed that the occupied Palestinian territory, OPT, lies above sizable reservoirs of oil and natural gas wealth in Area C of the West Bank and the Mediterranean coast off the Gaza Strip, according to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development study. New discoveries of natural gas in the Levant Basin in the range of 122 trillion cubic foot, while recoverable oil is estimated at 1.7 billion barrels, according to the study entitled The Economic Cost of Occupation for Palestinian People, the Unrealized Oil and Natural Gas Potential. This offers an opportunity to distribute and share about 524 billion US dollars among the different parties in the region and promote peace and cooperation among all belligerents, the study shows. These funds could finance socio-economic development in the occupied Palestinian territory as part of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. However, so far as the Palestinian people have been prohibited from exploiting the oil and gas reserves in their own land and water to meet their energy needs and generate fiscal and export revenues. This increases both the opportunity costs and the total cost borne by Palestinian people as a result of occupation, as the study states. So, with that being said, what is going on, as we can see, is really ultimately it comes down to resources and money. Noah, one of my favorite questions that you always ask is who benefits? If you can talk about this and give me your thoughts about this.
Yeah, I gotta disclaim that, by the way. That's not my question. That's Lenin's question.
Okay.
You're gonna steal from the best, right? But so there's a few prongs of this, right? And one is geopolitical. Israel is there, and Joe Biden's come out and said this. If there was no Israel, they would create an Israel. That's a geopolitical buffer in this region, right? And if you look at the borders, they're very important borders. But within this, let's go back to the beginning of the creation of Israel, right? Millions of Jews displaced by the Holocaust, right? A bunch are taken within the Soviet Union. And this sort of movement begins, the Zionist movement, around the slogan, never again, right? Never will we be so dependent on another people that they can do this to us again. And so they move to this region. And at first, there is peace with the local Palestinian population for a while, actually. And they had some sort of socialistic practices, these things called the kibbutzes, right? Which were community owned. And none of that matters. But always, this has the backing of American finance. American finance sort of births the Israeli ruling class, right? And from there, what does capital do? It accumulates, right? So if you've seen that famous image of the map that gets smaller and smaller of Palestine as Israel gets bigger and bigger, right?
Absolutely.
That can be tracked to the accumulation of capital in these handful of firms. All of the settlements, that's all owned real estate, right?
Yeah.
Ownership of the power gives them power to, or the power of the electricity, energy, etc., gives them the power to continue expanding as their capital base expands. It's always about the money. Why did the US invade Iraq? The money. Why did they invade Vietnam after the Vietnamese basically they upheld the Declaration of Independence and said, please help us in our fight against a colonizer, just as you did in 1776. And what did the US do? They invaded them because of that money. It's always about the money.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm at a point right now, well, where everything's clicking, because land is also the means of production, right? And if Israel is taking more Palestinian land, they're literally seizing their means of production away from people who have lived on that land for centuries. And so all of this is really just capitalistic theft of a land that has resources that they don't want these people to have. And there was I should show this. There was a video that I shared on Sabby and JB show the other night. In fact, you know what? Let me share this, because this, I think it bears repeating. Because this was, God, the way this guy put it was just so beautiful, because it really shows the history and how it's connected all to the system of capitalism.
Yo, is that Ryan from The Office? That looks like the dude from that show The Office.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. But he's wearing a good color, though, because I'm wearing almost the same color.
Video, I'm going to explain to you why I keep seeing Palestinians being called barbaric, savage terrorists.
All right, I want to add an international lens to what this creator is saying, because I think you can't really talk about Islamic terrorism as it's referred to in the West without mentioning the rise and fall of secular Arab nationalism in the mid-1900s. This is so relevant because what's commonly referred to as the end of secular Arab nationalism is in 1967, when Israel launched the Six-Day War against its surrounding Arab nations. This is also when it captured Golan Heights, East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. But I'll get back to that in a little bit, because I have a lot of history to cover and I don't want it to take more than a few minutes. Because this goes back to World War I, when Britain and France actually enlisted the support of Arab fighting forces against the Central Powers, specifically the Ottomans, who had controlled most of the Middle East at that point. And the way they did that was they promised the Arabs independence after the war was over if they won. And honestly, it's wild that the Allied nations still take credit for winning World War I without even mentioning the Arab Revolt of 1916. And in a surprising turn of events, the British and French actually lied. And not only did they not give the Arabs self-determination as they agreed upon, not that the Ottoman Empire wasn't a thing anymore, they just took the region for themselves. Now, does this look familiar at all? Maybe from your history class in high school, the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Notice how this says May 1916. This is a month before the Arab Revolt and like a year and a half before the end of World War I. So what does that mean? That means that the British and French were lying to these people's faces, telling them that they'll get self-determination for fighting against the Ottomans, when really they had a plan to divide up the entirety of the Middle East between themselves. Also, look, Palestine, under British, French, and Russian protection. Remember that. Here's another thing you might remember.
So one of the things that this reminds me of, Noah, is how they divvied up Africa and said, okay, we're going to keep Africa in our hands, but we're going to divide it up into different nations, right? Instead of going according to what the indigenous Africans and how their tribes are divvied up, they wanted to go according to what they thought, which means that they put borders between where some African tribes were actually living.
Mhm.
So let's say you have a Tutsi tribe and they're in between two African nations. Well, they put a border between them and said, oh, you're citizens of this nation and you're citizens of this nation, when in reality, they're all one people. So it just goes just it just reminds me of that.
Yeah, and Sykes-Picot is I mean, it's famous as this. It's the colonial powers literally drawing up new lines based on where they could exploit resources from, right?
Yep.
So not only do they put a line between entire peoples, but they also put together peoples that aren't together, that aren't part of the same nation or people, right? This is, and then what they do is they would encourage fighting between these groups and talk about how, you know, the savage backward Middle Easterners and Arabs can't stop their religious wars, right? When all of this is based on their interference and colonization.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And they'll create like one being at a lower class and one nation being at an upper class, and then they'll make them fight each other.
They were trying to play Iran and Iraq against each other forever, and it worked for a long time.
Wow.
It was like, well, and I mean, look at what Iraq was like, the most secular nation in that entire region, right? If you remember, before they were a Baath socialist country, right? And in the 80s, aligned with the Soviet Union. Now, they had a left and right wing. Like Baathism is a very peculiar sort of socialism, but they have a left and a right, within their Baathist party. And there's Qasim, or is it Qassam Hussein, who was the leader, and Saddam Hussein, who was sort of a rising star on the right part of the party. He begins working with the CIA, not because he wanted to, because he had to, right? And ends up sending assassins after his cousin, and they basically get rid of the entire left part of the party.
Gotcha.
And things are okay. They're sort of allowed a grace period from the CIA. And then the Hussein begins talking about needing more of a share of the oil markets. Mm-hmm. Surprise, surprise. That is when they get invaded.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Well, thanks for that historical context too. So let's continue because it gets deeper.
might remember from your world history class the Balfour Declaration, which establishes Palestine also as a national home for Jews. But Israel isn't first established until after World War II. So in the meantime, Arabs, who are really upset, obviously, at the British and French occupying them, launch a bunch of independence movements. This includes countries like Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. This takes us to World War II, specifically the aftermath of World War II, which is millions of Jews fleeing Nazi rule, many of whom are urged by the British and other allied countries to set up shop in Palestine. As a side note, notice how Western European countries conveniently redirect a lot of Jewish refugees to an area that is very far from them. All right, 1948, Israel declares independence, which leads to the first Arab-Israeli war. With the help of the British, Israel successfully protects its independence, which leads to the Nakba, which is the expulsion of almost 1 million Palestinians from their ancestral homes. Now, during this time, Arab nationalism is surging, especially after gaining independence from the British and the French, and as a response to this.
Go ahead.
Right there, the Nakba. Over 800,000 people just given the boot. I know he's like doing a short video, but I think that needs like a moment to really think about that.
Yeah, I gotta let that breathe.
That's all.
800,000.
And that was like, they don't have like an official number. That's their low number. Like it cannot be less than that.
Imagine you, your family, all your neighbors, your whole block, everybody that you know getting kicked out of your land.
Yeah,
you guys have a small business where you're growing olive trees that have been in your family for generations. You're creating olive oil and things like that, and then you get kicked out by essentially a bunch of Europeans that came in because they said, well, the United Nations gave us this land. And it's like, well, who are they to give our land to you? Who are they?
And this is how I got all of my coworkers on board for this specific issue, right? Think about if they came and just took, like, I'm from Cleveland, and I tell them, what if they came in and booted us all out of our houses, right? You are no longer welcome in the neighborhood you grew up in. Remember that place where you and all your buddies first kissed a girl? That's now from somebody, from Canada. Someone from Canada owns that now. You can't go back. Oh, and by the way, as we move south, we all got to work for those Canadians. We're not allowed to own the businesses. They own them. We just go work for them. It's wild. And that's like, if you can personalize it like that, just my advice, that's how I do it. That's what makes sense to people.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this is where my kid was born, but now I can't go back because somebody took it away from me. This is where my grandma's house was that I have memories as a child was, but I can't go back because they took that from me. And then on top of it, if I try to take my house back, I'm labeled as a terrorist for doing so.
They always label, who else they labeled a terrorist, by the way? Nelson Mandela. When he was active, he was imprisoned, called a terrorist, etc. Wonder what they're going to say about the Al-Qassam in 20 years. The Al-Qassam's the sort of military high command of Hamas. Are we going to remember them at the same way that we remember Nelson Mandela's time when he was called a terrorist? Or they called Fred Hampton a terrorist?
Yeah, they did. They called the Black Panthers Party terrorists.
You know what's crazy? And I don't want to get on like a tangent here, but all of this ties together. The way we are misinformed and miseducated in the institutions of the ruling class. Who benefits? Who benefits from us being taught in schools that the Black Panther Party were black terrorists who wanted to oppress white people? Who benefits from that? Not us.
You get the last word on that. You do. Thank you. Let's continue this because this guy is cooking.
Palestinians from their ancestral homes. Now, during this time, Arab nationalism is surging, especially after gaining independence from the British and the French, and as a response to the establishment of Israel. In 1952, Egypt has a revolution which leads to Jamal Abdel Nasser becoming president in 1956. This is generally considered to be the start of the Arab Cold War, which this is important, by the way, because this is a rivalry between Arab nations that consider themselves to be secularist, nationalist, and generally tend to be socialist, and Arab nations that are conservative, traditionalist, Islamist, and generally tend to be monarchies. Now,
That's the point. Because if you look at Saudi Arabia, what they did in, I think it was Iran with the overthrow of Mohammed Mossadegh, and then they put in the Shah, which was supported by the United States. It's always traditionalist, religious, right-wing governments that they put in. And anything that is to the left, that's secular, that focuses on taking the resources and giving it to the people, or collectivizing it and making the collective of all the people off of it, then the United States will come in and say, don't you dare. And they'll do it against the will of the people, even if that person is democratically elected. And then the United States will take it and say, no, you guys can't have what you collectively voted on democratically. When the United States says we're going to spread democracy, they're doing the opposite. Always remember, when the United States says we're spreading democracy, that means they're taking it away.
I don't know of anyone in the U.S. that would say openly, I'm on the side of the establishment, right? Nobody. I mean, our government is approved of by what, 8% of people wholly? I think it's something ridiculously low like that. Only like less than 30% say that our government works for us. Anyway, when we find ourselves on their side on an issue, we should be questioning that.
Thank you. Oh my God. Hang on. Now, listen to what Noah just said. Whenever you find yourself on the side of the establishment, give yourself pause. Which nation is the establishment standing behind right now?
Precisely.
We're all the celebrities, right? From Chris Rock to Gal Gadot to Natalie Portman, all of them. What are they on? Now, if you're on the same side as the establishment, the State Department, all these celebrities, and if you're still cheering for the same side that they are, pause and think about it. If you're advocating for the same people that CNN, Fox, MSNBC, News Nation, Breaking Points, if you're cheering for that side, even though, was it 1,500 people killed versus 7,000,
and that's just since the beginning of this part.
Yeah, since October 7th.
Right.
And the thing is that a lot of times people think, everybody wants to go back, well, what happened on October 7th was tragic. What happened in 1948 was tragic. That was tragedy. And
what happened?
They have a name for it called the Nakba, which means the Great Tragedy.
What happened in 2022 was tragic. What happened in 2021 was tragic. What happened in 2020 was tragic. What happened in 2019 was tragic. And on and on and on. I mean, here's the thing, and this is what bothers me about a lot of people who sort of perform being on the left, but the substance of them is inherently reactionary or liberal, right? They seem to put a hammer and sickle or a smiley face or whatever they want onto the rhetoric of the ruling class. In the abstract, they're like, I'm for liberation. But every time it comes down to the real world, they are cheering on imperialism. Doesn't matter how many times you say the word dialectics, if you're not looking at a problem dialectically. Doesn't matter how many hammers and sickles you put in your Twitter profile. If you're on the side of the ruling class, you're on the side of the ruling class.
Yep. Thank you so very much. All right, man, this is just too rich. All this wisdom that you putting on me, Noah. Thank you.
I don't know about wisdom.
Saudi Arabia
something on you.
Doesn't like secularism because it's Islamist. It also doesn't like socialism because it's traditionalist. Now let's think for a second, right? This is the Arab Cold War, which is part of the Cold War. Which side in the Cold War tended to identify as being anti-socialist? The United States. The United States did not want Soviet communism spreading through the Middle East, so they signed a mutual defense assistance agreement with Saudi Arabia. This was the official start of US-Saudi relations, and notice in this case how the United States aligned itself with Islamists against secularists. Now, this finally takes us back to the Six-Day War, 1967, when Israel takes over not just Gaza, not just the West Bank, but Golan Heights and Sinai too. This deals, I can't even begin to explain how big of a deal this war was. This deals such a huge blow to the Arab world, but especially Egypt, Jordan.
In his notes, he says, obviously this destroyed Palestine, specifically the PLO, which was secularist and socialist. Remember that historically, Palestinian independence movements were secular, inclusive of Jews and Christians, unlike Israel.
And in Syria, which were secular nations.
One of the things the ruling class always does, what they try to do is get rid of the communist or communist adjacent forces within an oppressed people, right?
Mhm.
So that way, the only thing left is the right, the right wing of it, right? And then they have an easier rhetorical time talking about, Hamas are all far right reactionaries. They can control the left with this and the right with the same basic, super patriotism, as Michael Parenti would say, that our ruling class is the world police or whatever.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so very much for that.
And in Syria, which were secular nations. And this is the moment when the United States comes in and starts its long-standing alliance with Israel. This is from the BBC, by the way. After 1967, the Americans looked at Israel with new eyes. It fell in love with the young Sabras who had beaten 3 Arab armies. And in doing so, the US took the reins from Britain and France in being the Western nation that keeps the Middle East in line. All right, y'all, we're reaching the end. Honestly, this took way longer than expected, so thanks for bearing with me. At this point, secular Arab nationalism is more or less demolished, especially after Iran stages a theocratic revolution. But there is one strong freestanding nation left that is secular, and that's Iraq. Does that ring a little bit of a bell, y'all? The war in Iraq, Saddam Hussein. Let me show you a video real quick.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
I was like 5 years old when the United States captured Saddam Hussein after invading Iraq.
And his note says, remember how we literally lied about WMDs to justify invading Iraq, leading to the destruction of Iraq and hundreds of thousands of deaths, including Americans?
And I had no idea what was going on then. And now I finally understand. Now the point I'm making with this entire video, like 100 years of history, is that time and time again, the United States has sided with Islamists. And this primarily has been done through its alliance with Saudi Arabia. Through this, it's toppled with other Western nations, Syria, Egypt, Iraq, Afghanistan, etc. And in Palestine in particular, this meant the destruction of the PLO, which was a secularist, socialist, Arab nationalist party. And guess who they were replaced by? The Israeli-funded Hamas organization. I have a video about this, but Israel funded Hamas as well, which was an Islamist organization, so that they could fight against the secularists, the same strategy that the United States did. And just like what happened in Afghanistan, where the Islamists that the United States funded started fighting.
Notes. His notes say, more specifically, the U.S. funded the Mujahideen, which the Taliban splintered off from and destabilized Afghanistan, creating the power vacuum for them to take power. And then, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Before you move on the Mujahideen, this was their move against the Soviet Union, right? The Afghanistan was an incredibly progressive place at one point in time. They had a very big communist party gaining power, gaining steam. And what they do is the CIA begins creating, funding, and training these not just Islamists, but fanatical sort of fundamentalist groups, right? The Mujahideen. And they are against the Marxist Party in their own country. And the CIA basically forces the hand of the Soviets to go in and save this sort of fledgling communist government before the Mujahideen destroys them, creating what they call the Afghan trap, right? And eventually they wipe out all the left forces in Afghanistan, leaving only who? The Taliban. The Taliban then become an enemy of our ruling class at some point in many ways. In other ways, they're still allied to them, but that's neither here nor there. My point is, this happens over and over and over again throughout these countries. Our ruling class is not stupid. It's not like they didn't know this would happen with Hamas. They knew precisely what would happen with Hamas. The whole question of this forever war they're waging is a continuation of capital accumulation. Without that capital accumulation, their actual power base falls. That's all I wanted to say. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. Thank you very much for that. It says, also note that Israel never explicitly allied with Hamas, and Hamas was always pro-Palestinian independence. My point is that just as the US and Israel will fund Islamists to fight against their enemies and then turn back and call them terrorists once the quote unquote threat is taken care of. I worded this part wrong. Okay. So he was just correcting his mistake.
Against the US, the same thing.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm so sorry, brother.
No, it's all good.
One quick fact about the Mujahideen.
Okay.
You know who got his training and start with the Mujahideen? Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
He was called a hero. There are American movies, and for anyone who doesn't know, our sort of deep state, for lack of a better word, is very involved in Hollywood. And in the 80s, there were movies that were like dedicated to Osama bin Laden and the Mujahideen. Mainstream media was calling them heroes against
Rambo.
Yeah, Rambo. Exactly, that's one of them. It literally says within the credits, dedicated to the brave Mujahideen forces. Right? It's wild, and they were calling the Soviet soldiers going in there terrorists. They were calling the legitimate communist government terrorists. They always do. They don't change up plays when they work. So it's up to us to stop them working, to not let them pass.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Thank you so much for that too. All right, let's finish up.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Against the US, the same thing happened in Palestine, where Hamas started fighting back against Israel. Now that is why you see the term terrorist everywhere, because the United States will fund any and every Islamist movement they can find as long as they're fighting against their enemies. And then the moment those Islamist movements start fighting back against the US, they're terrorists. And if that sounds so familiar, it's because that is the same thing that the British did to what would become the secular Arab nationalists in funding them to fight their enemies, the Ottomans. Welcome to Modern Geopolitics, y'all. I hope you enjoy your stay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was great. I'm gonna share that video in the chat so you guys also have access to it, because that was a great explanation, especially when it comes to showing how it's all tied to money and capital. Because a lot of people, once you follow the money, that's how you realize that this all isn't just coincidental. And a lot of times people will go, well, what's going on in Israel-Palestine is a complicated issue. It's so complex, and they've been fighting for centuries and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. They haven't been fighting for centuries. This stuff started back in 1948. It has not been a long ass time they've been fighting. In fact, Jewish people, Muslims, and Christians have all been living in harmony in Palestine up until that point. They were chill. They were cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could be a Jewish person, go to a mosque and pray at the mosque next to somebody who's Muslim, and it's cool with them because they're like, we all pray to the same God, and we all are basically based on Abrahamic religions, so we're all basically cousins. So it's all good. And Jews, Muslims, and Christians, look, there are Palestinian Jews, there are Christian Palestinians out there, as well as Muslim Palestinians. And guess who's being murdered right now? There's also Jewish and Christian Palestinians that are being murdered out there.
Yeah, there was a Christian church that Israel bombed.
Yeah, it was an Orthodox Christian church, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
it's wild. Like the narratives that they sort of push forward, they always have some sort of like kernel of truth that they're center, like some statistic they'll quote. But the issue is that the narrative they're saying is not proven by whatever the fact is, right? Like, are there problems between religions? Yes. Is that the center of all of this? No, of course not. Like Jamie was just saying, like people just lived together, right? Look at Syria, which is a secular nation.
Mm-hmm.
Alawites and Muslim, like everybody just Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like this stuff. Like it just the amount of dishonesty in our media. I don't think we even like really think about it often. We all,
Mhm.
go like you can just like offhandedly go, "Oh, I don't trust the media." But then every single like actual story, somehow that's the one you trust. Come on, you know. It's
Yeah.
kind of like people who conservatives who will tell you they're anti-communist will rail against the mainstream media, and you go, so why do you believe them about communism?
Thank you.
They don't got an answer for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, okay, you don't believe mainstream media, but when they rail against communism or when they rail against a particular marginalized group, you're going to believe them? Oh, it's
Right?
like, oh, so you don't believe them when it comes to Donald Trump, but then when it comes to somebody that may be, black or an immigrant or somebody that's LGBTQ, you believe them?
And you know what's funny? I'm so quick aside. I'm starting this new series on the Institute's social media called Real Talk, where we discuss like the actual way we talk to coworkers and friends and stuff. And this is one of the things that I've used with my coworkers to just completely eliminate xenophobia. Right? Like a lot of the guys I work with were all about that sort of Fox News, everything bad is the fault of immigrants, etc. And one of the ways I get in there is I tell them like, why are you trusting the media to tell you the truth about immigrants? Let's think about it for a minute. You and I are smart enough to figure this out, right? And over a while, it don't happen right away, but over a while, like that's all gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, because they're the ones that are lying to you because they're trying to say that everything's good when everything is crap.
Mm-hmm.
It's like don't believe your wallet, just believe us. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna look at my wallet. I'm looking at my bank account. I'm going on the bank account app and I'm looking and seeing my number in the red. And you guys are saying that everything's good, according to whom?
Right?
Right?
Both Trump and Biden claim to have like started this huge recovery in our economy. Like Biden, just a few months ago, was talking about how well Bidenomics is
That's
working out. What? Like, it's like they want you. It's like, did you see? There's a really Libby sort of movie called "Don't Look Up." Do you remember that?
oh that was funny. Yeah, it was
That's what it is, right? It's them just constantly saying, "Don't look up."
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
Whatever
wild.
you do, don't look up.
And W.E.B. Du Bois talks about this on an ideological level, and he calls it the American assumption, right? That you can, and there's a lot that goes into this theoretically, but that the notion created within the sort of the germ of it's in the dawn of industrial capitalism, that if you work hard and smart, you can improve your station, right? That has a sort of flip side of the coin that if you are not improving your station, if you are immiserated, impoverished, etc., it's you not working hard enough or being smart enough, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you look at statistics, that means that we're either all very stupid people who don't work hard, which, I mean, look around, that's clearly not true, or the whole idea is kind of wrong because there is one direction class mobility goes in this country.
Yeah,
Down.
absolutely. Thank you very much for that. So just a couple of comments that I want to get to as well while you're here. And you can respond, however you wish. First from John Chaos says, realize that the Arab world worked on Sharia banking, a banking system that prohibits interest. It was the banker Lord Rothschild that convinced Balfour to declare a Jewish homeland. If I'm correct, the usury was also banned in the Torah as well as in early Christian congregation as well. So basically saying that you must not charge interest. So really, ultimately, it was in all of all three of the Abrahamic religions was like, no, you don't charge interest.
Yep. And that's sort of related to pre-commodity production society,
Mhm.
right? Where parasitism, which is what usury is just as destabilizing as it is now, but you don't
Yeah.
have that mass-produced commodity to keep it going, right? And so it could destroy things. Remember, at the time, these religious institutions were the ruling class. So their law was like concrete, actual laws you follow.
Got it. Yeah, just like the Mosaic law was the law at the time of the Israelites at the time. Yeah. So I'm going back in my head to my, learning when I used to preach door to door. So this is all
Well,
coming
you
back.
know that Jesus kicked over the money changers' tables because of it.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, look, if I was a Christian again, that'd be the type of Jesus that I would rock with. Like the one that kicked over the money changers, the one that tanged out with the prostitutes and the people who were, the rejects. They're not rejects because they are actually really good people, but the people who the establishment rejected, that's the type of people who I would be chilling out with, if I was still a Christian. But I hang out with them anyway, but I'm not really a Christian anymore. Or Christian-ish. You said
Is that the play on Jewish?
Matthew says, I think the number of Christians in Gaza is around 1,000. It might be more, it might be less, I'm not sure, but they are definitely suffering too. Thank you very much. Cobra Commander says, I'm so poor that when my account has $100, I think I'm doing great. Me too, man.
I feel you, brother. I feel you.
Mm-hmm. Sean Miller says, I'm blonde hair, blue eyed, and a mosque accepted me while a Christian church would not. Some of them can be very judgmental. Deeply, deeply judgmental. Let me go to Rockfin really quick. I hope I'm not taking too much of your time. I got a couple other news stories. If you, and just, whenever you're like, yeah, I got to get going, just let me know. But
I'm cool, brother. As long as you give me a quick bathroom break, I'm good.
sure. Yeah. Hey,
all right, tell you what, I'll be right back then. My wife got home a little bit ago anyhow. I want to go, say hi, honey, and just give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back, and then I'm all yours.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I'll do some house cleaning. Okay. He'll be right back. So let me go to the Rock and do a couple house cleaning things too as well. So thank you very much for this Hempcar. Hempcar, thank you. Hempcar be sharing some interesting articles that are really necessary. I will definitely say that, Hempcar. Oh wait, actually, I think I took this down, and then I can. I think, yeah, and then I can take that down. All right. Sorry, guys. I'm just seeing some stuff that I needed to. Okay. All right. So let's wait. What in the world? Okay. So thank you for that, Hempcar. Says child cannot be 100% normal. What is this? What are you sharing with me, Hempcar? This is from Jewish World. Gentile sperm leads to barbaric offspring. What? Rabbi Dov Lior says Jewish law prohibits sterile couples from conceiving using non-Jew sperm as it causes adverse traits on subject of single mothers. He says child cannot be 100% normal. What in the world? What in the hell? All right, I'll take a look at that hemp car. Thank you very much. All right, so let me continue. Said Tim Carr says, had I been a Jew, I would have been a fanatical Zionist. I could not imagine being anything else. In fact, I would have been the most ardent Zionist possible. That's from Adolf Eichmann. I'm sorry. 51 Documents Zionist. I said, like the fat race cartoons Nazis made. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the dehumanization is really horrible. Hemkar says, Pakistan has oil too. Dr. Shiva was saying how Israel is an air base to control the region. Nuclear base too. Bill Blum, America's deadliest export is democracy. Thank you so very much. Okay. And then Zionist collaboration with the Nazis, edited by Lenny Brenner. Okay. Thank you so very much for all that, Hempcar. Appreciate it. Just wanted to make sure I checked The Rock. And let's go to the rest of the chat. John Kemper says religion points back to aliens. Oh my goodness. Let me see. Notori Lee says, wait, I have my account at 69 cents. The universe is trying to tell you something, Notori. Anyway, let me continue. Also, just to let you guys know, if you guys have not, you guys can go to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com so you guys can get notified of my live streams as well as clips and any articles that I write. Also, just want to thank all the patrons on Patreon, Coffee, as well as anybody that sends me any type of mutual aid through PayPal. So thank you so very much to all of you. I also want to give a quick shout out to new patron on Patreon, Zoe Rangunenen. Thank you so very much. Now, if you would like to, you can also become a patron on Patreon for this channel. If you guys would like to support the channel, just go to patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You guys also can become a member. Here is the tiers. We have JB members, Solidarity, Comrade, Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, and Mega Jaybefaunters. So thank you so very much to all of you that's been supporting the channel, as well as there's also the PayPal link in the description below. And before I go and continue, also, we are raising funds for mutual aid here in Orlando. We're trying to raise $3,000. If you guys go to Cash App Orlando RBN, we're doing that as well so that we can raise money for grocery gift cards, toiletries, and warm clothes to people on the ground. We are trying to do as much as we possibly can so that we can build up our communities, and because we know that the government is not doing a damn thing like they should, because they're more focused on the capitalists, the people who are at the top, the big business owners, instead of the actual people on the ground. So if you guys would like to, then we also have that as well. Sharing that also in the chat as well, if you guys would like to donate. And if you guys donate during the stream, I'll make sure to shout you out. If you do not want to be shouted out, just please put in the description as well that you want to remain anonymous in the notes. All right. So just please make sure to let me know. All right. So thank you so very much to everybody for that. So just want to make sure I also get that out as well. Now, one of the things we're going to be talking about, so I want to share this here, is we're going to be talking about at the primary portion Daou is done. We're going to be getting to that in a little while. This is going to be a very interesting subject. It's getting crazy out there, y'all, so I can't wait to get into it. Then we're going to be talking about free speech opposition. So we're going to be talking about Ron DeSantis and his opposition to free speech. And now we're going to be talking about one job should be enough. So we're going to be talking about labor and what's going on in Las Vegas now. So I have my notes here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please go ahead.
No, I thought you were making space for me and I wasn't picking up on it or something. I saw them women from the what, I forget which union it was in Vegas getting arrested.
Yeah.
They weren't resisting at all. They were literally just striking for better working conditions and wages. And these cops were straight up zip tying them with their hands behind their backs. And these aren't, young, rabble-rousing, like anarchist kids or anything, right? They're not wild protesters. They're older women, right? The disrespect. I don't know, man. That kind of thing bothers me. The way I was raised, if I would have even approached one of those women in a way that wasn't just respectful, like I can feel like my dad's like slap on the back of my head. You know what I mean? Like, wow, who do these people think they are?
Yep, absolutely. So, let me start off with this. Story time. There once was a young man named James, and he was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, fluffy boy. Still fluffy, but I lost a few pounds. But James decided to work in the food service industry after going through a culinary arts program in Atlantic High School through his junior and senior year. Now, while James was working in this industry for about 6 years, James saw a lot of things happen in the culinary and hospitality world, and a strong union would have helped James to keep things more fair. Alas, it didn't happen. But today in 2023, culinary and hospitality workers are in a union and they are on strike in Las Vegas. So they face police persecution, as a lot of these companies typically do. And the persecution is from class traders with guns and badges known as the police. So I'm going to share some of this with you guys. This is from their Facebook, Culinary Workers Union Local 226. So let me see. All right, so let's take a look here. So here they are. They're literally on the Vegas Strip. And this says Caesars Entertainment, contract now. And in the bottom is in Spanish. And they are literally on the Vegas Strip, really just saying that they want their contracts. And there's the media everywhere. So yeah, so that's what's going on right now. So as far as what they are doing, let me share the news from them. Let me see. Man, I got a lot of tabs open. I'm surprised my computer's doing this well. Okay. So let me share this. I'm glad you're here too, because I think from your analysis would be wonderful on this. Their sign says one job should be enough. So it says the human cost of high hotel profits, a survey of Las Vegas guest room attendance. So here's the contract negotiations that they're looking for. It says culinary and bartenders unions are negotiating a new 5-year contract with the following casino resorts on the Las Vegas Strip, where contracts at 18 properties are expired. So the MGM Resorts International, this is the Aria, the Bellagio, Excalibur, Luxor, Mandalay Bay, MGM Grand, New York, and Park MGM. The Caesars, which is the Caesars Forum, Caesars Palace, Flamingo, Harris, Paris Hotel, Planet Hollywood, the Cromwell, the Link, Wynn Resorts, including the Encore. It says culinary and bartenders unions are also negotiating a new 5-year contract with following 24 casino resort companies that are still under contract extension. So it talks about these, like the Hilton Grand Vacations, Four Seasons, Circus, the Rio. It says downtown Las Vegas. So all these basically, right? And it says winning the largest wage increase ever negotiated in the history of the culinary union. So it says the culinary bartenders unions have proposed a 5-year contract language to provide greater measure of security for workers. It says mandating daily room cleaning. So it says reduce workload and steep housekeep room quotas, and establishing the right for guest room attendants to securely work in set areas. Can you guys see that? Hang on. Yeah, that's better.
That's better.
Yeah. It says providing the best on-job safety protections for all classifications, including safety committees, expanding the use of safety buttons to more workers, penalties if safety buttons don't work, enforcing mandatory room checks and employee and public safety, and tracking sexual harassment, assault, and criminal behavior by customers. This is important.
Let me interrupt real quick. People don't think about the amount of sexual harassment service industry people face from customers. I used to manage a kitchen at a restaurant, right? I was a line cook and then I managed it. And the amount of people we kicked out of that bar for messing with our staff, for literally like trying to touch our servers or our bartenders, I lost count. It's a lot.
Oh, absolutely. My dude, I was a line cook as well. I still got the mouth of a line cook, but I'm trying to be good while on stream. You know what I'm saying? But
when I worked at a restaurant, I gained so much weight. So much weight. That was like after I did Muay Thai for a long time. After I stopped like all that stuff, that was what ballooned me up. Was working at that restaurant, because like, how do you not just all day like grab something, as you're walking?
Well,
big bin of French fries. Oh
man. Yeah, not me. Because I was trying to be the goody two shoes, so we weren't allowed to eat on the line. And so I remember one coworker said, if you're a chef, you should never be hungry while you're working on the line. Now, if I were working in the kitchen now, I'm grabbing, right? But me back then, it was the Christian thing to follow all the rules. Man, they ain't paying you enough. You grab something to eat off that line. I don't care now. As long as you do it according to food safety, you go, step off the line, grab a couple, fries, and then come back on, wash your hands, and put on your gloves. You're good. You're good.
The way I look at it is the owners are literally getting rich, sitting there while we're doing all the work. I'm going to take a French fry. Like that's all there is to it. That's the same reason I will literally just sit there and play on my phone at work right now for like 20 minutes at a time. Because fuck them. I'm sorry.
I love it.
These dudes.
This is why I invited you.
I work at a smallish company, right? They're millionaires from a handful of us. So fuck them. I'm gonna take the 20 minutes and play on my phone.
Yeah, it's called cyberloafing. That was what I learned on Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. It's a good
I call it stealing back the clock.
I like it. All right. So it says extending recall rights so that workers have more job security and having the right to return to their jobs in the event of another pandemic or economic crisis, making clear that no strike clause does not prevent the culinary union from taking action, including strikes against non-union restaurants on the casino property, and gives casino workers the right to respect picket lines. So these are some of the strikes, and then they also have the strike votes.
Wait.
Sorry, go ahead.
Jimmy, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. That last one is huge. Huge. Because we're talking about just the service staff. But they're reserving the right for all casino workers to not cross their picket line. That means the dealers, the janitors, everybody who works in that casino, the security staff, the banking staff, all of them can stand on the line with them and not get in trouble, not lose their jobs. That is gigantic. It's that kind of thing. That is what created things like the CIO. You know, the Teamsters to this day still have it in their contracts that they do not cross a picket. Period.
Wow.
So if there's a Teamster delivering stuff to, there was recently the Hollywood set strikes, they don't do it. Instead, they'll join in.
Wow.
It's stuff like that. Yeah. It's stuff like that that creates class consciousness and solidarity. And that's what the ruling class genuinely, within the sphere of labor, that is what they fear. That's why they created Taft-Hartley, right? That outlawed the solidarity strike.
Got you. Okay. Thank you very much for that, by the way.
I'm sorry I keep ranting. I'll shut up, I promise.
No. This is good because the thing is you add a lot of context as well. I appreciate it.
You could just be like Eddie and call me a windbag. That's more realistic.
No. Your wisdom is welcome. It says members of the culinary and bartenders unions have voted by 95% to authorize a citywide strike after tens of thousands of hospitality workers packed the Thomas and Mack Center on campus at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas on September 26, 2023 to cast their votes. The culinary union is now authorized to call for a strike at any date or time at 18 casino resorts on the Las Vegas Strip between the largest employers, MGM Resorts, Caesars Entertainment Corporation, and Wynn Encore Resorts. So
that is what's up.
Yup. Boy, oh boy. Says terms and conditions of an expired collective bargaining agreement largely remain in effect, including wages, benefits, job security protections, but the no strike provisions are no longer in effect, which will set the stage for workers to go on strike after successful strike authorization. And if the culinary and bartender unions and employers do not come to an agreement before the strike deadline, culinary union represents 60,000 hospitality workers in Nevada. 53,000 are based in Las Vegas and are in active negotiations with casino hotel employers for a new 5-year contract. 40,000 workers employed at MGM Resorts, Caesars Entertainment, and Wynn Encore Resorts are working under an expired contract and are at risk of a major labor dispute.
All the solidarity in the world goes out to them, man. All of this new labor militancy, and you know, a lot of Marxists will like try to draw this line between productive labor that creates a commodity and unproductive labor. That basically, it's just a word that means like it's not creating value in the commodity. right? So like the productive labor are the people in the factories packaging the boxes of food they send to these places, right? And the unproductive labor would be the actual cooking and serving of the food. But really, that doesn't matter, right? In our era, and I won't get into a big theoretical discussion of what reproletarianization and the higher stage of imperialism means, because it's not the point. The point is everybody's hurting. Everybody's hurting. And we're getting to a point where everybody's fighting back. Now, I'm a productive worker personally. Do I care if the guy I'm fighting alongside hasn't put value into a commodity? No, of course not. And should they care if I'm doing that and they're not? No, their service, I'm production. Who cares? It's kind of like in the trades, we have this. I'm a finished carpenter, right? And there's also building carpenters. So there's finishing trades and building trades. And there's this like rivalry between the two. We're always complaining about the builders. They're always complaining about us. But at the end of the day, we're all against the boss. It's the boss preventing our families from having a stable life and us being able to actually accumulate enough wealth to have stability. That's the enemy.
Well, so let me add on to what you're talking about. I used to work for Ashley Furniture Home Store. So I was a sales rep. What business do I have to be against the carpenters who help build the furniture when in reality we should have solidarity with each other, because ultimately the big boss at the top is the same guy that's stiffing us both.
Mm-hmm. And
yes, you produce the furniture, but I sell the furniture that you produce so that we can both make money off that furniture. But ultimately, we are the ones who produce and put it out there for people to see. And I talk about the furniture you produce, and I basically schmooze with the people in order to sell it. Right. But the thing is that ultimately, I'm not making what I should be, to be honest with you. You're not making what you should be, to be honest with you. And ultimately, all because this guy at the top owns it all, he gets to take a big cut from you and me?
Right.
That doesn't make sense. That's not fair.
And they try to set us against each other, right? Yeah. To tell us that, oh, I'm not making as much because you're greedy and want more for selling, right? Yeah. Or you're not making as much because my union demanded a bigger contract, right? Yeah. Always they set, that is their entire strategy, divide and conquer. I mean, this is like the problem of racism.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Division of the people on behalf of the boss. Whether the boss is like the giant financial cartels or just the people owning the individual shop you work at, right? It's all the same thing. And they've done this in different forms throughout history, man. Bill Foster, William Z. Foster, one of the greatest communists in American history. He wrote this amazing sort of explanation of the steel unions, the Great Steel Strike, and the creation of the Communist Party, right? Because he was like friendly with the founders of it, and he was the national chairman for a long time. Anyway, he writes this thing, and he's talking about the AFL, which was a pre-AFL-CIO version of this, right? Now, this is back in the day when, Jim Crow era, right? And so like blatant racism was the norm. And what he's doing is describing how the white workers of the AFL, because it was a racist union and that was the only game in town, were on strike. They're trying to organize for higher wages, right? And so what the boss does is specifically uses black scab labor, right? Because they're in a more precarious position and will work for less, and they won't have a problem scabbing because they're scabbing against these racist guys. Why do they care, right? And so what Foster figures out is that the bosses are literally just setting them against each other in order to turn their class struggle into a race struggle, right? And so what do you think his solution is? It is to go to the black workers and say, if you join us, we are going to get you in the union. And you know how all these bosses discriminate against black workers for hiring? We are going to make sure it's the union that decides who is hired. And guess what? That means you're in. Just come fight with us. And we're stronger together, basically. This creates the first integrated unions in the country. And it's this and the longshoremen who have a similar thing. And I could go into the story, but this is monumental because what it does is it ends no, it doesn't end it in totality, but in this instance, ends that division. It wins the fight against that division. Always in American history, the winning move has been uniting working people against the boss, no matter what form it takes. Sorry, I know what I promised not to rant, and then I go on a big long rant.
No, and in fact, I learned some of this stuff from an article in Black Agenda Report, where they actually talked about how race and class was intertwined, basically using that same story about the AFL-CIO and as far as the UAW and how they use racism to try to pit workers against each other. So yes, absolutely. I appreciate you putting that in there. Bless you, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, so the Communist Party USA is actually the very first integrated political organization in the country.
Wow. Okay.
And they built the CIO. It wasn't at first integrated into the AFL. It was in opposition to the AFL because the AFL wouldn't let black workers in. So they built the CIO in order to have anti-racist unions. There were 11 original unions in the CIO. 9 of them were red unions, meaning they were communist-led. Out of those 9 communist unions, was it 6? I want to say it was 6 or 7 had black leadership. In the Jim Crow era, that's a big fucking deal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you so very much for that. Let me go. So I want to share what was happening on the ground in Vegas as the people were literally they were protesting. Let me see. So this is why I enjoy More Perfect Union, because they do great work.
They're awesome.
Yeah. I follow their channel too. It says dozens of union hotel workers were arrested on the Vegas Strip yesterday as thousands rallied for a better contract. The workers of Culinary 226 flooded the Strip, demanding that Vegas' 3 big resort conglomerates negotiate a fair contract. 40,000 could strike at any moment. So let's take a look.
I saw that.
So one of the things that I want to And I'm gonna keep this playing in the background. But one of the things that I wanted to express is the fact that when people talk about class consciousness, look at the people who are actually saying that we need more worker power, and look who's the ones who are arresting people for expressing that need for more worker power. The people who are doing the arresting do not stand with the rest of us. So when people like me say things like defund the police, it's because they were never on our side to begin with. And then a lot of times, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I'll just be really quick. Lenin teaches us to look for the class nature of an institution. Who owns the police?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. Who owns the police?
Built by the ruling class, for the ruling class. I mean, and like, don't get me wrong. I'm from a poverty-riddled, crime-riddled area, right? Mm-hmm. It's not as if cops serve no purpose, right? But the problem is they serve the purposes of the ruling class, right? In fighting against crime, it is only perpetuating bourgeois order, right? It's sort of like when my car got stolen recently, right? My wife's car, actually.
I'm sorry.
And it was Eddie who stole it, but no, that was a thing we did. But when we called the cops, the nature of the police force was apparent in the way they approached us and the problem, right? Yes, they were doing their jobs looking for our car. They came there. You know what the first thing they did was? Tried to blame my wife for the car getting stolen. In my house, in my dining room. This guy is like, well, why weren't you using the club? We were giving them to all the Kia owners for free. And I'm like, motherfucker, who do you think you are? Don't talk to her that way. You know, and even the guy's partner was like rolling his eyes. But that's how they look at us, right? And it's important to always remember how the cops are looking at us. That tells you everything.
Yeah. So, going back to what they're doing at this union, Culinary 226, they are really fighting just to have what they need as far as just what they need as far as workers. And so I think that's the point. A lot of times people just do not, these corporations, these casinos, these hotels, it's about extracting as much as they possibly can from the people instead of actually realizing that their profit and what they accumulate really comes from the wealth that's created by these workers. So,
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you don't need the boss needs you. We don't fight. We don't engage in the class struggle because we think it's cool or because we're fine and want more and we're greedy. We do it because we need to.
Yep.
And the reason we see more and more labor militancy is because it's more and more necessary.
Yep.
I gotta get going pretty soon, but I wanna say this. If you read into Soviet and Russian history, the state of the US right now is so remarkably similar to the early 1900s in Russia.
Mhm.
And that same radical trade unionism that is rising in our country right now was rising then. And they had a Lenin who stood up and led them. They had a Bolshevik party who took all of that was already there, right? And connected it. And in the connection came the realization that just constantly arguing with the boss will never be enough. It will never be enough.
Absolutely.
It is impossible for us to live full, dignified lives as human beings with this boss controlling everything. No more boss. No more boss. Time for us to do this ourselves. And then we saw the first worker state. And genuinely, I think that's what's coming here in the US. Some people say I'm too optimistic, but the parallels are too much not to stand up and take notice and to recognize our part in this. Right now, I think we're witnessing the beginning of the new American revolutionary movement. I really do. And it's not going to look the way the left of the last period thought it would. I mean, how many times has RBN been canceled by that left? Right?
Yeah.
They're mad because we're doing what they could never do, because they don't realize it's not something special about us or something bad about them. It's the conditions that create the sort of necessity of us.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're sort of kicking around this idea for in a few months, creating a revolutionary Congress, getting everybody together who's serious and saying, what do we do?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So, I know you say you got to get going, but can you let people know where can they find you as well so that they are tuned in to what you got going on?
Yeah, absolutely. MidwesternMorks.com. You can always find any of my writing there. I do have a pamphlet that is finally coming out soon on my own theory, which is called Reproletarianization, the Life and Death of the American Middle Class. That'll be out very soon. We're going to be beginning Marxism School, which you can find on the Midwestern Marx Institute's YouTube channel. I'm going to be running new classes soon. So there'll be a second round of Basics of Marxism. And JB, you will be invited to the one that's a prerequisite for, which is Intermediate Dialectics. That's my next big project. And you can find me on Twitter. My Twitter thing is right there. Or I don't know how to point with the mirroring, but yeah, that's it. There we go. That's my Twitter. Yeah, and that's it. But really, Midwestern Marx Institute is where you can find me. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on, JB. I love talking to you, brother.
Yeah, me too. Definitely.
Everybody at RBN, this right here, what we're all doing. Don't sell yourself short. This is the future, brother.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Noah. And you and your family have a beautiful and, just an awesome day.
You too, brother. Take care. And I'm sure I'll talk to you again soon.
You definitely will. You'll hear from me. Bye-bye. All right. So just to put a cap on this as well, solidarity with the workers out there in Vegas as they continuously get this done, because ultimately that's what needs to happen. Did you guys like the stream? Go ahead and give the stream a like so that we can get pushed out more into the algorithm. And just to let you guys know, if you guys have not heard, I'm demonetized. So if you guys didn't know, then you guys can go to my PayPal description or join a Patreon. Either way, I appreciate supporting the channel. Thank you so very much. Yes, I've been demonetized talking about what's going on in Palestine. So, yes, that happened to me too. So, yeah. Now, just to go to the chat a little bit so that I can get some of your thoughts, and then we'll move on to the next story. Da 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 da. I'm thugging it. Let me see. Bryce Smith says, to give context about the state of Nevada, us citizens don't pass state tax, the casinos do. Wait, what? Bryce, you're in Nevada, right? Oh, wait. The casino tax on the tab for those taxes. Oh. So are you saying that casinos don't pay a state tax, but the citizens do? Is that what you're saying? Oh, so I guess I understand what you're talking about. Wow. Okay. So you guys pay a state tax, but okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's corporations for you though. They always want to stiff you with the bill. That's basically what it is. All right. DC says Texas also does not have state taxes. Oh, you're saying the opposite. Oh, wait. Bryce says no, we don't pay state tax, but casinos do. Oh, okay. All right. Interesting, because here in Central Florida, well, in Florida, we don't have a state tax. Roger Meadow says Nevada is one of the 9 states with no state income tax, but they do have state taxes. Oh, okay. Bryce, you always cooking, bro. Thank you so very much. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next story. And I am going to be talking about this because this is in Florida. And oh gosh, I can't believe I had to talk about this motherfucker again. All right, so free speech opposition. This dude, this guy, I cannot stand him. Ron DeSantis is just the worst. I'm telling you. Gosh. So, Florida man, aka Ron DeSantis, is standing against free speech once again when it comes to voices that stand in solidarity with Palestinians who are undergoing illegal occupation and genocide at the hands of the IDF. Let's take a look at it, folks. Ay. So, let me share this with you guys. Yikes. All right, so it says Florida orders universities to deactivate pro-Palestinian group. Yep, it says there are at least 2 students for Justice for Palestine chapters at Florida universities facing cancellation. I thought, hang on, let me make myself bigger. I thought that the right was against cancel culture. Maybe it's just me, but I thought you guys didn't like canceling people. Oh, canceling people as long as they agree with you is bad, but canceling somebody that disagrees with you is okay. So cancel culture still exists for people like Ron DeSantis because it's an opinion that you don't like. Is that where we're going right now? Is this what you're about, Ronnie? Florida man don't like when people disagree with him. Okay. This is out of Tallahassee. Florida's University System Chancellor, responding to a push by Governor Ron DeSantis, directed state universities Tuesday to disband campus groups with ties to the National Students for Justice in Palestine organization, marking the first punishments handed down to colleges here amid the Israel-Hamas war. It is not, hang on, first of all, this isn't a war, because a war would denote that there are two equal opposing sides fighting each other. You have a paramilitary organization, a militant organization that's no different than the NFAC coalition, which is a black coalition of just paramilitary people with guns. And their numbers are probably, maybe 500 people, versus an actual military superpower that actually has nuclear weapons. One side got paragliders. The other one has F-15 fighter jets. It's not equal, right? One side has a little paramilitary, and the other one has an actual one of the largest militaries in the world. So, that being said, it is not equal. Also, by the way, what we're witnessing is not a war. It is a genocide, because if you look at the amount of people who have been killed on the Israeli side, 1,500. The Palestinian side, 7,000. And it's not equal. It is extremely disproportionate. And bombings still continue on the Palestinians, by the way. So we got to make that point very abundantly clear. Now, says in a memo to school leaders, the state ordered a crackdown on campus events led by the pro-Palestinian organization that the DeSantis administration claims amount to, quote, harmful support for terrorist groups, end quote, like Hamas, which attacked Israel in early October. Florida, under Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis, has staunchly supported Israel during the ongoing, quote unquote, war, and was monitoring college protests that have since ignited. By the way, just so that people know, when you are being occupied by a foreign entity, you have the right to resist that occupation by any means necessary. That's actually in the Geneva Conventions. That's international law. I'll say that. All right, so continuing on, it says, based on the national SJP support of, you guys see that word, in consultation with Governor DeSantis, the student chapters must be deactivated. That's from State University System Chancellor Ray Rodriguez. There are at least 2 students for Justice of Palestine chapters in Florida universities facing cancellation through ties to the national organization, according to Rodriguez, who did not specify where the groups were located in their memo. The University of Florida and the University of South Florida, though, both appear to have SJP chapters. Florida is targeting the groups over a toolkit published by the national organization that has received growing attention from officials. Rodriguez, for his part, seized on a portion of the toolkit labeled the attack, now known as Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, as the resistance, and claimed that Palestinian students in exile are part of this movement, not in solidarity with this movement. As by linking this document to SJP branches in Florida, the state contends that the groups are violating state law that makes it a felony to knowingly provide material support to a designated foreign organization. So it says National SJP affirmatively identified as one of the Operation Al-Aqsa Flood a blank-led attack. Rodriguez did not spell out any specific punishment the groups or schools would face if they didn't comply. So ultimately, This person was upset that Ron DeSantis didn't act sooner. It says the SJP chapters are disbanded and will be allowed to form new student groups outside the national organization's purview. Rodriguez said in his memo, the chancellor asked universities to grant waivers for groups that seek to reapply as new organizations. So basically, if you express any solidarity with Palestinians as a student, you're canceled, which means your lives are at risk for opposing genocide. And here's the funny part. Somebody like Ron DeSantis, who says that he's for free speech, he will always renege on that free speech over and over and over. He does not actually believe in it. And it's the same thing as if you supported the Black Panthers back in the day. Because then who will they call the T word? They'll call you the T word if you are against what the United States is doing. And you can express it all you want. But guess what? They're going to label you that. Hell, my channel's throttled. I should have more people watching right now, but I don't. Because, well, you know why. So that's the point. Somebody like Ron DeSantis is really against free speech because he does not like for anyone to get in the way of AIPAC and the Israel lobby, who's actually talking about what's going on in regards to Palestine. And how many people, young people, are literally being stopped. They're talking about, well, no, you guys can't do this because you guys are advocating for the people who are I gotta purse my words carefully. For taking out Israelis. When in the meantime, nobody's condemning Israel for the taking out and genocide of thousands and thousands and thousands of Palestinians, all of which are Jewish, Muslim, Christian, atheist, and otherwise. Thousands of Palestinians. You can't talk about that as a student. And then you'll have billionaires that'll say, no, you can't hire these people. You have presidents, like school presidents, and you'll have, oh my God, professors that will literally say, no, you can't. Don't hire these people. Speaking out against genocide, according to them, is a bad thing. According to them, it's a no-no. It's just like, what do you do? And you have college students literally walking out, advocating for Palestine. And yet you got people going, oh my God, people are on the side of the T word. When in reality, nobody's advocating for the T word. What we're advocating for is the ceasefire and the stopping of the murder of Palestinians and the illegal occupation that's literally happening, the colonialism that is happening on a people that have lived peacefully with different religious groups for hundreds of years. Look, here's my thing. If you want to move to Palestine, set up shop, get a place there, fine, cool. Become an immigrant, move there. But don't move the people who have been there for centuries out. Don't push them out of their own homeland. That's the problem. They're not against you living among them. They're against you taking their house. You can live among me all you want. It's cool. But don't take my stuff. Don't take my land. Like the hell? That's the problem. And somehow, it's a bad thing to say, don't take people's stuff. Don't steal people's land. Like, when has that become so bad? Apparently, the people at the top don't like you advocating against stealing. Tracks, doesn't it, though? It tracks. So people like Ron DeSantis want you to be able to say, well, yeah, it's okay if you advocate for people who steal other people's stuff. But if you advocate for people to try to take their stuff back, oh, that's just wrong. Now, there is a lot of colleges right now that are walking out, that are, and they are railing against this. And I have to say this. The kids are going to be all right. They're going to be all right, man. And I'm actually quite happy about them. And this makes me proud. So, yeah. So I'm going to go to the chat really quick. I wanted to make that really quick because I also don't want this stream to be way too long, but I have to get to this. I have to get to this story because it happened on Thursday, and I was gonna go live on Thursday, but I'm like, nah, let this breathe for a second. So just give me one second. Sorry about that. Okay, so, and what do you guys think? Like, what do you think? Like, do you think that Ron DeSantis is anti-free speech? Because I think so. Because even like, okay, this is the same guy that doesn't want anybody to be taught about communism, even though that's literally what free speech is advocating for speech that you may not agree with, but you have the ability to say it as long as you're not threatening the life of somebody, as long as you're not calling for violence against somebody. It's like, why is it like, if communism is so bad, then let people learn the flaws of it, right? If communism is so bad, then all the countries that are communist, the United States, let them fall on their own. Stop putting sanctions on them, right? Let them fall on their own. Let the people in those countries democratically choose what type of government they want. And if they want a communist government, then that's their prerogative. Isn't that the meaning of democracy? Cuba hosts democratically held elections often. They do democratic elections in DPRK. They do democratic elections in China. If it is so bad, then let the people do what they do. let them do their democratic thing. But don't stop choosing for them. Because now you, as a country, as a government, a foreign government, are dictating to a foreign people what they should be having as far as their government goes. That's not democracy. That's totalitarianism. That's foreign totalitarianism. Who are you to tell a foreign people what they should and shouldn't have? You're literally taking away their autonomy, their sovereignty. So, stop the sanctions. And if they want to nationalize their resources, all right, then let them nationalize their resources. But you don't want to. Because if you do, then what happens? It's not in American interests. But if I'm in Thailand, what the hell do I care about American interests? I care about Thai interests. If I'm in Congo, what do I care about American interests? I care about Congolese interests. So my interests are going to be in the Congolese people. So why does it matter to you that we appeal to your interests? Because if I'm from Congo or if I'm Sudanese, right, I'm going to go to Sudanese interests. And if that means that we're going to take our resources and we're going to nationalize it and use those resources to uplift all the Sudanese people, it doesn't matter if it's not your interest. It's our interests. So stop putting your hand in our government. Stop it with the sanctions on our government because they want to take the funds, the money, and spread it across the board for everybody. Stop. But then we'll implement socialism. We may implement communism. And the United States doesn't want that. The West doesn't want that. Because then everybody will start doing better collectively. And if everybody starts doing better collectively, then a lot of us will start looking and going, oh, snap. Sudan, they're doing better. Congo, they're doing better. Look what they did. Look what they did to Burkina Faso. They literally murdered Sankara. This is why they're doing what they're doing to Palestine right now. Look what we talked about earlier. Because there's resources there. And they want Israel to take it over so that the United States and their corporations in conjunction with Israel are able to extract all the resources. That's basically what it is. So let's go to the chat. Like I said, Sean Brock, what up, JB? Good to see you, Sean Brock. All right. Let's you see. Sean says, just like Ukraine, this conflict in the Arabian Peninsula is all about controlling energy, rights, and profits. Absolutely. Thank you so very much for that. And yeah, keep radicalizing your kids. Wesley says, we don't have nationalized resources in USA. Why would they have them in other places? If they want to collectively as a people, then that's their prerogative. If we want to collectively as a people, then that's our prerogative. The problem is, it's never given to us as a choice. Like, here will be amazing. if they gave us a national ballot initiative amendment to choose, do you want to nationalize ExxonMobil, let's say hypothetically, or any petroleum company that is drilling on U.S. soil? Do you want to nationalize? Basically, yes or no, and full nationalization of our gas industry, or our oil industry, I should say. They would never do that, because a lot of people would say yes, especially if you took the profits from said industry and just gave it collectively to everybody in the United States. Instead of the profits going to the shareholders, the profits go to all of us. What? No, saying ain't so. Imagine if we nationalize, let's say just hypothetically, the sugar industry. Hell, what if we do it just on a statewide level? Stationalize the sugar industry. And all the profits from Big Sugar go to all the residents in Florida. Like, what? I would never want that to happen. So the thing is that they take that choice away from us, right? But also, who is our government to take that choice away from other people in other countries? Wesley says similar ideas have taken root in USA locally. Alaska shares oil well. Yeah, basically. But we can do that nationwide. That's what I'm saying. All right, so I'm going to be heading into the final and main story of the day. So if you guys have not, then you guys please make sure to like the stream, give me a like as well as also, by the way, I also have merch as well. If you guys would like to, you guys can go Bonfire and go to the Jaybefaunt store. So if you guys would like that too, actually, you know what? I'll put that in the chat too, just in case if you guys would like to. I do have a shirt that says "Leave the world better than you found it." So if you guys would like to, you guys can get that shirt too. So I designed it. So hopefully, if you guys like, you guys can also get that too. So yeah, let me put this in the chat so you guys have access to that. All right, so let's go to the primary story. Daou is done. All right, I got some thoughts. Daou is out. This is breaking news from Thursday. Dr. Cornel West has announced that his controversial campaign manager, Peter Daou, has resigned. This comes off the heels of a controversial announcement of Daou becoming the campaign manager and West's subsequent departure from the Green Party. So if you guys have not, I saw this. I said, what? Let's take a look. Let me share. Ooh, this is wow. So this is from Dr. Cornel West. He says, I am very sorry about the resignation of Brother Peter Daou based on his health. I sincerely pray for him and his precious family and thank him for his service to my campaign. First of all, let me ask you this. Peter Daou came in 2 months ago, less than 2 months ago. It just feels like he just got there, right? And now he's out. Does this seem fishy at all to any of you guys, or is this more? It's just a circumstance thing. What do you guys think? Because my question is, like, why in the world? Why in the world is he leaving now? And he gives a reason, but do you believe that? I meant to do this earlier, but I wanted to make sure that I did it and it didn't disappear. All right. So I just put up a poll. The poll, it says, do you believe Peter Daou's reason for leaving? Now, we're going to go over it, and then I will share with you guys, my thoughts. But this seems, I don't know. It feels kind of convenient or inconvenient. But he says, thanks, brother West. Peter Daou says, I'm so tired of human violence and brutality. I'm so tired of the U.S. enabling and supporting it. He says, my PTSD from growing up in Beirut under constant bombardment is being triggered in a big way by this genocide. I'm going to take time off and pray on everything. Says, in rubble of Gaza, a desperate search for survivors, right? So here's the thing, though. I simply cannot dictate what it's like to have PTSD due to war. I don't know what that's like. So I can't delegitimize his feelings like that. One thing I will say, though, is that there's always a chance of stuff like this coming up as a campaign manager. My question is, why take the job in the first place if you know stuff like this may come up internationally? Because this stuff has been happening off and on for years. And of course, this stuff would happen while a presidential campaign happens. So my question to Mr. Daou would be, why did you take the job in the first place if there's a possibility that your PTSD could be triggered when it comes to stuff like this? Why not just give it to somebody else? Another question I would have personally is, would you have quit if you were still part of the Marianne Williamson campaign? I don't know the answer to these questions, but it's like, what is happening in Palestine is bound to happen. Also, if this didn't happen in Palestine, but right now it's happening in Sudan and in Congo, would you still have quit? Because it's happening in Sudan and it's happening in Congo right now too. Would you still be campaign manager for Dr. Cornel West if it wasn't happening in Palestine, but it's still happening in Congo and Sudan? Because it's happening there too. There was a lot of people that were very disappointed because of the history of Peter Daou. And a lot of people were just iffy or looked at Peter Daou with a side eye, given the history of how he was very zealous going against a lot of people who were against people like Hillary Clinton. You remember he was an aide to Hillary Clinton. Unfortunately for a lot of us, especially a lot of us who were part of the wave that Bernie Sanders had, a lot of us were against Hillary Clinton. And so people like Peter Daou went against a lot of us simply because we saw Hillary Clinton for what she was. And so this rubbed people the wrong way. Here's what Peter Daou had to say in response to his leaving. It says, truth. To armchair Twitter quarterbacks who keep questioning my motives, here's a reality check. He said, I saved Cornel West's campaign and Marianne Williamson's, for that matter, from financial insolvency and complete internal disarray. Let me ask this question really quick. Is it a save because, according to who you talk to, some don't see it as a save? Like, for instance, the ballot access. People like Dr. Cornel West are now in a more disadvantaged position because now he has to get ballot access. Now, another question is, did you have influence over Dr. Cornel West leaving the Green Party? Or did you try to talk him into staying in the Green Party? Because according to you, you said that you wanted them all to run independent. But the Green Party has ballot access in like 18 states. Dr. Cornel West is now starting back from zero. Which decision did you influence? So, without having that knowledge, the question now is, did you have influence over him leaving? Because then now it's like, well, did you really save it or did you doom it? That's just a question. He continues, he says, I created solid infrastructure, stabilized finances, built effective teams, encouraged unionization, and led both candidates to their highest poll numbers in the race. He said, importantly, Dr. West's tweet statements and political strategic decisions were entirely his own. So the thing is that as far as Dr. West is concerned, from what I'm seeing is, I don't know if, I guess he doesn't have a political strategist. I think everything is entirely his own, which that's his prerogative. I have invited Dr. West to this channel. I have yet to get a response. But if he feels that he doesn't need a political strategist, that's fine. But at the same time, I would say that messaging needs to be more concise, especially focusing on the policy positions and pushing that as the selling point in order to grow your numbers and popularity. I haven't really seen that as strongly as I would like. Harping on universal health care, women's right to choose, pushing for a living wage for all workers, pushing for public banks, like start talking about things like that, like hammering on these policies. Boom, boom, boom. And using that every single time you talk to people, whether it's on mainstream media or independent media, keep harping on these. Boom. Going line by line on your policy platform. Don't let up. Kind of like what Bernie did. Like, for all Bernie's faults, and there are many, one thing I definitely can say that Bernie Sanders did well was that he said whenever anybody talked to him, he went on the points as far as the platform. Boom, boom, boom. In fact, what was his motto? Not me, us. That's another thing I would say is you need a catchphrase, right? Just as what love looks like in public, that's a good one, right? But something that really just chimes off the ear, just, But I honestly do think that as somebody who's an academic, I think some condensation in the messaging needs to take place. But that's kind of drifting off. I'm drifting off on a tangent here. But when it comes to having a political strategist, I think that's somebody can actually hone your message in so that you can, I hate to put it this way, but sell the message. And yes, a campaign manager is somebody that keeps the campaign in line, but honestly would encourage a political strategist as well. Somebody who has the same beliefs as you, or very similar, or more beliefs further to the left than you. He says, and frankly, it's repulsive to suggest a black man of his intellect and stature is not making his own decisions. My only policy role was to help refine and launch his platform, written by his policy director, which has received praise from many quarters. People who spew BS about me don't have the slightest idea of the mess I inherited at the Williamson and West campaigns and the tireless work I did to get both campaigns on track to challenge the duopoly at a toll to my own well-being. As another fact, my personal beliefs are significantly to the left of both candidates I worked for in this cycle. Finally, I remain deeply grateful to Dr. Joe Stein for bringing me to Dr. West's campaign and for him giving me the opportunity to support his mission. He continues, he says, I spent this cycle doing everything politically possible to mount credible challenges to the ruthless ruling parties. I communicated with every non-GOP challenger, encouraged RFK Jr. to run as an independent, and relentlessly called on genocide-enabling Joe Biden to step down. And although I have thicker skin than most, I am still sick and tired of Twitter naysayers who snipe at me and the candidates I work for from the sidelines while we're doing everything we can to take on the oppressive system. Do you believe him? As far as Peter Daou is concerned, the road to hell is paved with good intentions? Have I ever give you guys my perspective on Dr. Cornel West leaving the Green Party? I'll do that now. I think that this makes his campaign appear sloppy. I'm not saying that he is doing it on purpose, but it makes it appear that way, unfortunately, because it's okay, I'm running through the People's Party. That happened. Then he left the People's Party and then joined the Green Party. As he's in the Green Party, then he employs Peter Daou. Controversial. Peter Daou comes in. After Peter Daou comes in, then he soon leaves the Green Party. Now he's running independent. Does not have ballot access in any state whatsoever. Then on top of it, now Peter Daou leaves. And Peter Daou was once part of the Marianne Williamson campaign. And it feels like, well, I want to try this out. I want to try that out. I want to try this out. Try that out. And it's like, Dr. West, what do you want? It feels like you're in the house, you're out the house. You're in the house, you're out the house. You're letting all my air out. What do you want to do? But at the same time, there is also issues within the Green Party, and there are many. As well as there's also issues in running independent. And with that being said, it's difficult to navigate. But I would wish that he had navigated this and did this before actually putting his hat into the race and seeing which direction was the best for him before actually putting his hat in. Hindsight's always 20/20. And some people will look at somebody like Peter Daou and say, well, he did this on purpose. Maybe I'm a little bit naive in thinking he meant well. Am I too nice? I feel like he meant well, but it ended up blowing up. And it's blowing up in Dr. West's face. Now, a lot of us who are politically astute would say that, yes, this is terrible and all that, right? But what about the average voter who doesn't know about the inner workings of campaign and really doesn't give a shit about the inner workings of a campaign? What about the people who are just out there in the street who want something different than duopoly, that really don't care? It's like, okay, so we find out that he has left two different parties and now is independent and has had a controversial campaign manager. What does this mean for me? Does it really mean anything for me as a voter? Because ultimately, as a voter, what means the most to me is the policy platform and the positions. Is an average voter really going to care about this moment by the time we reach the primaries? By the time we reach the general election after the Democratic and Republican there's no Democratic primaries. But by the time the Republican primaries are over and we're in the actual general election, is it really going to matter? What happened now? Question is, how far and how deep of a message is Dr. West really going to get by the time we reach May, June of next year. By May or June of next year, is he going to have as much notoriety and are many people going to know that he's actually running for president? Are many people going to be aware of his policy platform? And the thing is it's not like they're shielding Dr. West from being on mainstream media. He's being invited on. He's talking about his presidential election. Or at least he should be. He's being brought on to talk about different subjects. If I were him, I'd keep curtailing it back to, yes, and this is why I'm running, and these are the policies that I am for. And just keep harping on them. But is he? And so it's not like he's being blocked out right now. He's being invited. That's what I see, right? I just think that Dr. West, if he really, I think there needs to be a more focused and centered message, a focused and centered message, and the campaign has to be a well-oiled machine. Now, one of the things I did find out is that trying to get a good campaign manager is difficult in politics, because if you go outside the duopoly, that is a career killer. So that's one of the things as well. So for Peter Daou to leave, who's going to be running the campaign now? Who's going to be running the operations of the campaign? It's going to make it tougher. So that's that. But ultimately, what is Dr. West trying to do? He's saying he's trying to create a movement. But that movement cannot be truly expanded upon without a cohesive message. If you want the kids to follow you, you got to give them something, right? It's just like, if I wanted to get the attention of kids, get a bucket of candy and say, hey, I have a message for you. Here you go. Do you want blow pop? Do you want the strawberry candy? I got some now and laters, blah, blah, blah. And then once you offer it to them, then you can talk to them and say, hey, this person isn't treating you right. Like, for instance, like a teacher or something like that. Come to my class. I'll teach you about all the cool stuff that you want. Like, I don't know, video games, right? And how to build a computer or whatever. Thing is like, you have to give people something in order for them to recognize that, oh, this is something better for me. And the thing is, like, you're not promising the moon, you're promising something possible. The problem is that if you're not getting that message out there, then people aren't going to know what you're offering. It's like giving food to somebody that's suffering from hunger. You want them to listen to you, feed them. Right? It's the same thing. I'm going to feed you, but I'm also going to give you a message. And that message is going to be something that not only am I feeding you now, but if you think what I'm doing right now is good, then just wait a little bit longer. I know it didn't come out right in my head, but that's pretty much what I'm saying. I think that it's like he's focused on the academics, and which is good, but it's like save that for the speeches. Let's harp more on the policies. Does that make sense to you guys? Let me go here. I just don't know. I just feel like there's too many mistakes now. That's what it feels like right now. There's way too many mistakes. But I as far as people like Dr. West, I feel like his policies, Claudia De La Cruz and Jasmine Sherman, their policies, for the most part, are pretty solid. Ultimately, I'm going to use those policies as a way to start conversation with people so that we can build class consciousness. But if he really wants to start a movement, he has to harp on the policies so that he says, even if I don't win, we're going to continue and push for these amazing things that we should have as a movement from the ground up, even if I'm not president. Wesley Donaldson just says the Jasmine shtick could go over a lot better if he could play how Bill Clinton pulled it off better. I mean, he is a classic violinist. He can play the violin. That's one thing I do know. Wow. Hope Commander says not even the electoral college picks POTUS, and it always the same 2 million or less lead. They pick who they want, 5 million or more lead. They pick them. But yes, as far as somebody like Dr. West, I think there's just a lot of mistakes that have been made. But I don't know. It just feels like he just feels like it's like wherever the wind takes him in that way. I don't know. But that's what it feels like to me. And I think that he could be more cohesive and focused on his messaging. So yeah. So let me get to the chat. Also, let me take a look. Did you guys take the poll? Yeah, go ahead and take the poll. So Do you believe Peter Daou's reason for leaving? 5% said yes, 69% said no, 26% said doesn't matter. Yikes, bro. Damn. DC says he's part of the elitist intelligentsia. Oh, man. Wow. Yeah, it's not looking good for Peter. Yeah, I'm at a point right now where, like, what does Dr. West, like, what, in you guys' opinion, what does Dr. West do at this moment? Do you guys think that there's any viability with him still, or am I being overly pessimistic, or am I being overly optimistic, or am I in the middle of being realistic? What do you guys think? Because to me, it's like, do I say that he drop out? No, because I say take as much attention off the duopoly and put it on these policies as possible. Still, right? Put the attention on the policies, right? Because I'm gonna be honest with you. Not too many people know about Jasmine Sherman. Not too many people know about Claudia de la Cruz. Let's be real. Like, more people know about Dr. Cornel West than anybody else who's running third party, right? And I'm not even going to count RFK Jr. Some of y'all are going to hate me for this, but RFK Jr. is basically a Democrat with an I next to his name. He is a Zionist that honestly is advocating for genocide, so I don't count RFK Jr. He can go kick rocks for all I care. I'm going to be real with you. All right? But the other ones, possibly, their policies. Hang on. Let me take a look. Overly optimistic. So Desiree says I'm overly optimistic. DC says I'm being overly optimistic. Sean Miller says, while I still support West, I won't be voting. Cole Commander says West will still be a force for good, just not now. Sean Miller says he never got a dime from me, so I don't give a F. Interesting. Okay. But yeah, so ultimately, when it comes to messaging, I just hope that he gets more focused and cohesive. Because ultimately, I just want the messaging to get out there. That's what I want. I want the messaging to get out there so that we can build up, workers. Because if you build up the workers, we can say that he's never going to win. So let's build dual power so that we can actually have something better for all of us, because we know how this is going to go. That's what I want to do. John Chaos says, I just really wish West will be honest in facing his classism and how his Ivy League privilege was paid for by blood money by his war profiteer dad. I had no idea that his dad was war profiteer. Maybe, I don't know the history, so I can't say for certain if his dad was or wasn't. I'm not sure about that history. So, please bear with me. But, again, that's the problem. He is an academic, and I definitely think that he can go harder, especially on the Zionists. But that's my thing. But yeah, so I need to finish the stream because I really didn't eat much today, and I think that's why I'm a little bit kind of off right now. So yeah, if you guys have not, please make sure to give the stream a like so that I can afford to actually get something to eat. Because it's not that great today, guys. It's been rough. If you guys would like to, because I don't get any type of super chats anymore, then you guys can also send me something via PayPal if you guys would like. Or if you guys would like to, you guys can also become a member on my Patreon as well. So you guys can do that as well. Let me see. Oh my gosh. Highlight. Okay. All right. So thank you so very much for that. Wasn't expecting this many people to watch. Thank you so much. Also, we're also doing a fundraiser for Orlando Mutual Aid. You guys can go to Cash App $ Orlando RBN. And actually, I need to check and see if anybody donated so far during the stream. I will check that right now. So, thank you so very much for that. Let me check the Fizzone. Did I just say? I just said Fizzone. What the hell is wrong with me? I can't with myself right now. Okay. Woo. Okay. So thank you so much to Daniel. This is from this morning. Holy crap. Okay, thank you. And then thank you to Legend. Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you, Daniel, for the $20, and thank you, Legend, for the 50. Wow. Okay. I'm gonna shout these guys out, these people out, I should say, on Twitter as well. So wow. Okay. Damn. All right. That's awesome. So that we can get these toiletries as well as these grocery gift cards for the people who are houseless and homeless in our area. So thank you so very much. All right. So look, I will be coming out with clips as well. And I will also be doing the reading from Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price, as well as Asada Shakur's autobiography. So thank you so very much for bearing with me. Thank you so much, Sean Miller. Appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Bryce Smith, just speaking to people elevates class consciousness. You don't need a representative to speak for you on that. Again, someone lacking in critical thinking. Gotcha. Thank you so very much. All right, so I'm going to head out because it is definitely time for me to go. I got to eat because I really haven't eaten today. I had some grapes, some cheese, some crackers, and a couple apple slices earlier. That was it. That's all I've eaten today. And then that was expected. Oh, by the way, while I'm at it, so I went to Home Depot earlier because we had to get a couple things for the house and got like a bottle of, okay, you guys know I have this bottle. I've been reusing it for like the last like 8 months. I just refill it and just, put filtered water in there. But anyways, so we were out. I didn't have any water with me, and I saw a bottle of Smart Water like less than half this size at Home Depot, right? Grabbed it. We grabbed two because, myself and my mom, and we're like, okay, because we're thirsty. I wanted some water, and the other water is very acidic, and I didn't want that. I wanted something that was more, pH balanced. But anyways, so went to the register, and they were like, oh yeah, it's $5 and some change. I'm like, what? I'm like, how much is one? It's like $2.56 for a little bottle of Smart Water. I'm like, what in the hell is wrong with y'all? So I was like, they were like, yeah. And the cashier, she was like, well, yeah, water's expensive. I'm like, it shouldn't be. It's water. And, I'm like, man, this should not be this way. But then, because she's a worker, I said, and yeah, they need to pay y'all better than what they pay you guys as, workers. And she goes, well, I get paid decent already. And I'm like, all right. Well, that's not the case for everybody. Because a lot of people who are workers who are not in your position don't get paid enough. And workers need more power in that way. But here's the thing. If you're a worker, realize that your solidarity with other workers means the world. And so just because people aren't getting paid the same amount as you doesn't mean that they don't deserve to do better and be given better and really having worker power. That's my point. Workers deserve the power. So yeah. Anywho, I gotta get going because I am way over time. But thank you so much to Noah from Midwestern March joining me. It was a pleasure. And yeah, I didn't have plans on him joining this stream, but everything fell in place yesterday, so he was able to join. So thank you so very much. That'll be a clip all on his own because he'd be dropping gems. And thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. So, like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves. Leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. You got them. Watch something funny, watch something hilarious, because joy is revolutionary. Also, if you can, please make sure to keep talking about what's going on in Palestine right now. Do not let up. Also, set your sights on what's going on in Haiti, as well as Sudan and Congo. Make sure to talk about those as well, because people don't know, and they really need to. So, yes, take care. Take care. And to all the people on Rumble, I'm sorry, I forgot to create a Rumble stream. So my apologies. Things just went haywire earlier today, but we'll be back on track on Tuesday. I'll see you guys next week. Mwah! To all of you. Oh, sorry. Slay me. Mwah! Forehead kisses to every single one of you. I love you all. You know I do. Now, go ahead, have a happy Saturday, and shake your tail feathers. Go ahead, shake it. Shake, 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 shake. I you.